Scientists are sort of have this growing body of knowledge of the importance of trees and the importance of nature. But we also are coming to understand that with mass urbanization and the fact that more than half of the world's population now lives in cities, that is going to have some implications. I think the concept of nature as pristine, as protected, as nobody goes into that wilderness area, it still exists in certain ways, but even in any wilderness area that you go to anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, we know has some kind of human footprint. And now we realize that. So even ecologists are understanding that, in fact, we have to include humans into the scene, the view, the definition of what nature is. So I think that in terms of professional ecology, I can say with certainty that the definition of nature and ecosystem has definitely shifted over the last 20 years. And none too soon, because we all have to understand that, in fact, that's the way it is.
So in this rapidly urbanizing era, where does the environment fit in? We decided to take a closer look into our very own Philadelphia and explore what forms of urban environmental activism are thriving in the city of brotherly love. We met with Skip Wiener, who founded Urban Tree Connection, a grassroots nonprofit that has been transforming abandoned city lots into thriving gardens and full-scale farms over the last 24 years. Skip manages Urban Tree Connection from his home in West Philadelphia, where most of the organization's projects are concentrated.
I'm trained as a landscape architect. I got my master's degree in landscape architecture from Penn in the early 70s. It was clear to me that, the entire environmental 60s movement had bypassed urban and minority cultures, and that the least we could do, and this was as a landscape architect, was hang out in these urban spaces, which were not devoid of education. They were reforesting, some not successfully, some had meadow flowers, some had weed trees, some had some good softwood, trees. But it was, in the beginning with the younger kids, very simple. I started to go into churches where they were having after-school programs and sort of raised my voice and said, "Who wants to go outside and garden?" The kids took me immediately to the projects at 55th and Vine or Pearl Street, and we were standing on a block that the city had closed, and we started to build a garden. What was happening was there was a shift from the crime element to environmental kids programs, and so the environmental programs very rapidly moved into, let's build some more raised beds, let's grow some food, let's grow some more food. It was a way of people in the neighborhood meeting each other that sort of were not hanging with each other and talking about issues and saying, we should hang out together. And after a year of that going on, everybody said, what is it? And the women said, it's called Neighborhood Foods, and it's called Neighborhood Foods Farm. I didn't have to do much for this entire set of activities to explode.
Urban Tree Connection is an example of a well-established organization seeking urban renewal through land revitalization. We wanted to see what other forms of activism are taking on environmental issues in the city. Maypop Collective is a young organization that is grappling with the dynamics of energy politics. We talked with Hannah Jones, one of Maypop Collective's core members, to learn about their work.
Maypop Collective started in the fall of 2013 officially, and we were a group of Swarthmore students. We'd all done Swarthmore Mountain Justice, so we'd worked on fossil fuel divestment, and we were really excited to keep working together. So being fresh out of college was something we tried to be very honest with ourselves about, in terms of knowing that we had some knowledge, some experience, and also that we had so much to learn about organizing off campus. So we didn't actually start off with an incredibly specific mission beyond this sort of broad understanding that we wanted to be connecting racial and economic and ecological justice issues. And we arrived at this phrase that's sort of become our political home, which is just transition. And a just transition means transitioning off of a fossil fuel extraction-based economy to an economy that really centers wealth and ownership and health in communities, and especially the communities that have been the most impacted by the fossil fuel industry in the past. There's this environment versus jobs debate that crops up all over the place, and the fossil fuel industry has been really, really good at fueling that debate and creating this false dichotomy. But it leaves the real question of, okay, so if you oppose energy hub jobs, then what are you offering? And that's something that we love about Just Transition, is that it does require like offering an alternative vision. And so that alternate vision runs the gamut from people doing and providing for themselves. So community gardens, community and worker-owned businesses, etc. But also like public works projects.
Philadelphia has about 40,000 vacant lots. A lot of these 40,000 vacant lots, if you look at them, are really on their way to reforestation or revegetation. That whole process, if it's managed properly, can be a whole urban ecological movement. What I believe is that there is an urban ecosystem that is there. It's just not viewed as being there, and it doesn't need phenomenal amounts of resources to get it to emerge properly. The problem that I've run into is that the government really believes that the only solution to spaces, whatever they are to put buildings on them to get tax revenue. What we've done operates in two groups, one on a land or ecological group and one on a social group. So the ecology is taking over crime-ridden vacant lots that are on their way to reforestation or succession and making them usable by the community, especially the people that are adjacent to the lots, making them feel like they have ownership and a stake in those spaces, so they come out and participate in the activities on those spaces. And then if you have 1 lot, 2 lots, 3 lots, 4 lots, bringing those people that are operating around those lots together and saying, let's hang together. Let's do this together. So that's the social dynamic. That's the birthing of the civic organization. And it happens out of the ecosystems that are being built on these lots.
Philly is actually at a really interesting moment right now. So there are quite a lot of environmental issues here, environmental justice issues. The refinery in Philly is, I believe, the largest in the Eastern Seaboard. There's a lot more oil by rail coming through the city. There's actually right now plans to turn Philly into an energy hub. So they want to add pipelines, more oil by rail, and expand the refinery, and then attract like petrochemical industry to the city. So Philly's at a moment where there's sort of these toxic industries contesting for power in the city, and we're interested in really cultivating sort of the social movement forces that are already building in the city to contest back. This past summer of 2014, we did, our shorthand for it is the Summer Project. It was called the Young People's Just Transition Project, where we mentored 8 college students and recent graduates, and they all worked with different organizations in the city, and we had sort of a curriculum that we all studied together. And we've been really interested in learning from other organizing traditions. So door knocking, canvassing, policy advocacy, electoral campaigning, and asking what all those different traditions really had to say to one another. We've really been able to build community with different people in the city by just mostly doing a lot of listening. Like that's one of the best organizing skills you can have. We're actually just yesterday launching a listening tour where we're going to be door knocking, especially in neighborhoods surrounding the refinery and other pieces of infrastructure, to really listen to those communities. I think one of my biggest takeaways that I'm sitting with a lot right now is that there's no silver bullet solution and no one has all the answers. And I think that's an ethos that Maypop has cultivated altogether. So there are a lot of people doing a lot of different kinds of work, and some of it's more effective than others, but we really have a lot to learn from this, just a broad array of the work that's happening. And so really I think the task, especially of young organizers, but organizers generally in the climate movement, is sort of blending organizing traditions to kind of create new ways of doing social movement work.
And this was all people inside the community asking for stuff to be done, and it wasn't center city government top-down stuff, money or dialogue. So it was grassroots from the pavement up, which was the thing that was so unique and why it is a grassroots model. That's the difference between a top-down and a bottom-up.
I think my piece of advice would be to remain aware of the connections that humans do have with nature, however circumscribed it may be, however small it may be. Nature is always around us. So I guess I would just say, remember that nature provides all of the things that keep us alive.